million US dollars. So that money is supposed to compensate the Congolese who lost lives, the mineral resources that were stolen by Museveni and his henchmen. The most unfortunate part of this is that it's Ugandans who are footing that bill, but the people who stole from Congo were never held accountable. So what we envision in the new government is holding the people accountable. Those who have been causing trouble in the region will be held accountable, will be held to the account. Those who have cases in the International Criminal Court of Justice will be sent to The Hague to face their charges. So we sympathize with the people of Congo and we stand with them for their self-determination, and we will make sure that we stand alongside the people of DRC to liberate them from all the ills that have been caused by the regime of Museveni and his proxies who have been fighting in Eastern Congo.
Thank you for that. So after the ballot, what next? In the event that Yoweri Museveni wins, how prepared are Ugandans for this outcome? In the event that he doesn't, how is it going to look for Ugandans?
I think Ugandans have been waiting for this for 40 years. We have been longing to see change for 40 years. And I believe after January 15th, we shall see the results. I believe Ugandans are going to stand up to be counted. They are going to vote in overwhelming numbers, and I believe the regime will be ousted. And in the event that there is rigging of the elections, we believe that Ugandans still will stand up and demand accountability for their votes. They will stand up and demand equity to make sure that the regime is held accountable. It has been getting away with it. So it is going to take the people of Uganda to rise up to the occasion to see that they take their country back regardless. So we have, I think, all hands on deck to make sure that we take the country back.
Awesome. Okay, my last question, and I'll pass this to Milton. The Ugandan not the Ugandan diaspora, the East African diaspora. What do you think, or what role should we continue playing? I feel like when it comes to politics, we are not there yet. As an East African community, we are not fully, but this is my opinion, we are not fully engaged in the process of politics, in the process of the decolonization of minds. So between now and the 15th and after the 15th, what role can the diaspora community play to support the people of Uganda and to support the East African community, Milton?
Let me say this. I think you asked a very fundamental question to what happens after January 15th. From the twin question of what happens if Museveni is declared by the EC, or what if Bobi Wine or whoever is elected from the opposition. I think that is a very pertinent question that we need to ask ourselves, and it also goes to our friends and comrades in the Ugandan opposition in terms of how do they prepare themselves to deal with the aftermath of what comes out of January 15th. I would expect that they would be ready in terms of, if they are in power, what do they do from day one? How do they begin the process of healing the country? And healing here means how they put in place a proper governance system that ensures that there is they put the brakes on the malfeasance that has been characteristic of the regime, especially in the latter years of the administration, and also then put in place a governance system that works for the people, that ensures that the ills that have bedeviled the governance structure do not continue, but also they have a twin structure that also ensures that then they can begin to undo the rot that has been characteristic of the administration. I think that is a pertinent question that must be dealt with frontal and square by Bobby Wine and everybody that looks to a new dawn in the leadership. Number two, in the event that the incumbent squeezes their way into being declared and therefore maintains the stranglehold on power, again, the questions persist. What is it that will be done differently this time around to ensure that there is greater accountability and there is transparency, and above all, that it is, above all, the citizens are able to get the services that they deserve from the government of the day. Now, in terms of what the way forward looks like, theoretically speaking, I expect to see a citizenry that is woke, and not just in Uganda, but the entire East Africa. But more importantly, speaking from the Kenyan perspective, what will be important is that what lessons are we going to pick from how the dictators play out their script in terms of the elections, because this will give us, Stuluhu gave us an idea, and William Ruto has gone ahead to try and give us a sneak preview of what it would be like, what his strategy will be. We saw that from the by-elections that we had on November 27 in Kenya. And again, the elections of January 15th will give us an idea of what lessons the regime in Nairobi will be picking from Kampala. And therefore, for us who are in the civic space and agitating for better, we have our job very well cut out in terms of making sure that we then come up with counter strategies to make sure that there is no repeat of what happened in Tanzania, and what would have happened in Uganda does not happen in Kenya months later when Kenyans go to the ballot. And I think my message, again, I always want to speak from the perspective of giving solutions and proposing what I think would be solutions, is that we must call upon the EC in Uganda, call upon the IEBC in Kenya, call upon the East African community, the administrative structures, and I dare say call on William Ruto, who is the president of Kenya, not necessarily my president, because I don't think he deserves to be there, that this is a time to not take the people for granted. This is a time to be accountable to the people that have elected you and who have delegated their power to you, and you must be able to, at least for once, like they say, even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. We are not asking for twice a day. We are asking that for once, the unholy trinity, the oppressive trio of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzanian presidents, would you try and be right for once, do the right thing, and ensure that the people have a right to express themselves, the people have access to information as enshrined, as they have enacted for themselves, so that the media is given the power and the freedom to exercise their professionalism, and also the people have the right to exercise their rights democratically, and there will be no aftermath that will be a bloodbath. I'm not making my final remarks, but I'm just emphasizing that message, because I think it is very important that the people do. The principles, universal principles of democracy are such that the people will exercise their rights without intimidation, and elections will happen in an environment that is free from intimidation, free from violence, and that also includes the violence that we have seen from the state and agents of the state, including the rogue ones, who are more often than not deployed against the people. That message needs to sink. It has to be a message that we pass every single day between now and when the people cast their ballots on January 15th. Wow.
Before I give the microphone to the audience for comments and questions, do you want to chime in?
Yes, I think I wanted to paint a vision. There's a point you asked about what happens, like what's the vision of the new government look like. I think the new government we envision is going to be a people-centered government, a government that works for the people, not for the elites and for those that are in power. The other thing that we are very passionate about is a comprehensive overhaul of our education and health sectors. Those things are important. The next thing that you're going to see is we hold those in power to account. We're going to be fighting corruption and making sure that every Ugandan is involved in the economic and social development of the country, that there is equity in the social development of the country, but most importantly, to make sure that our natural resources that we have as Ugandans benefit us and not the imperials that the regime has been working for. So those are some of the things that we really envision in the new government. And last but not least is the regional stability. It's making sure that we stand by our friends in the East African region. Is we hear the cries of the people of Congo, is that if someone is being oppressed in Tanzania, a Ugandan should be concerned, and if someone is being oppressed in Kenya, a Ugandan should be concerned. So those are some of the things that we envision in the new government.
I have a question. What do you mean concerned? To me it sounds like a Protestant Congress where the religious people talk a lot of things. To me, systemic offer. What is this alternative to Museveni? What's the alternative to this repressive fascist dictators in Africa? What's the alternative? Systemically, what's the alternative? Not, to me, everybody promised to get where they got to be. We are regurgitating fascists, regurgitating thieves and exploiters. So I'm saying, what are the system that it's not like we'll be different. I don't buy that anymore. Like we've gone through, after the whole continent has gone through proselytizing leaders that promise everything. The issue now is, what is the system that that a person like you, an intellectual like the brother in you, what is the system you propose that guarantees guarantees our safety, well-being from thieves in Africa? In the the whole elite, enablers, they're all thieves. They're enablers. And the brother was saying early, like, to me, the African military, the African middle class, they're part and parcel of the thievery. Okay? That is why they enable a person like that. And I'm saying, tell me a system, not just a religious promise of we'll do good, we'll do better, or what is the system you propose that, that safety that protects us from bandits? So I'm not clear. I stepped out a second because there was emergency, but I would say this is my problem with both of you, is that what are you proposing besides a very good, let's be neighbors, let's be help? I know what is
Okay. Thank you. If I may
no, wait a minute. What does Congo get from, being aware of their pain? So is the missionaries. So is the nurses. So is all these international doctors.
Okay, if I may answer. Okay. the reason why I was saying that there is need for comprehensive overhaul of our systems is that we have had these regimes being puppets of the West for the most part. You would see that the interests of their people are not centered. Yet we can call for self-governance, we can call for self-determination. We have the means to do that. Unfortunately, our leaders have been letting us down. When they get into power, they have the people they serve, the imperialists that they serve. What we propose is, first of all, making sure that we run our mineral resources, we use them as leverage on the international market. We have a vast amount of rare minerals, which most countries don't have. So there is need for us to work as partners and not as people who are just receiving aid. There is need for us to exchange good practice with our neighbors on where they are doing good and how we, like, if there is something Kenya is doing better than Uganda, there is need for us to exchange good practice instead of depending on the Western powers. And I'll give an example. When COVID happened, I think COVID would have been a very good wake-up call for the African nations. That when COVID happened, there took a time when Africans were like last in line to get vaccines that were necessary, or even getting, PPE, protective gear like masks. We had to wait in line. Those are things that we as Africans can work on. The structure is there. The infrastructure for making that possible is there. Unfortunately, it's just the bad leaders. And I'll give
excuse me, my brother.
Yes.
You're not answering my question.
Yes.
My question is, tell me your proposed system. I know you're right about, the government. You're right about the hidden power of imperialists. I know that. We agree on it. Okay? And I'm saying, this has been from the 1400, we know, from the 14th century, we know Europeans' exploitation of Africa. It's an ABCD of history. We know that. And it's always through middle people, middlemen. Slavery wouldn't happen in Africa without middle agents. Europeans are not superhuman beings. They're not gods. But our weak link are our own people who lead them into the heart of the mineral resources to outsource our wealth. We know all this thing. I'm saying, system-wise, ideological if you want, what are you proposing? I know the bad guys already. Don't keep telling me about the bad guys. I knew them before you were born, I would say to you, because I'm an old man. Museveni, when he first came, we knew how he came to power. Okay, but the issue now for me is, how do we stop duplicating this exploiters? To me, I don't trust you. I don't trust myself to come to power, because we do the same thing. We condemned against whoever was in power. We end up being the new folks to exploit Africa from the crumbs Europe gives us. That's a fact. I'm saying to you, give me a systemic proposal, a system, not overhauling what exists is not ours, even by your own example. COVID, I'm glad they line us up last, but we didn't wake up. If we wake up, we would have woken up during slavery. So I'm saying, you give me a proposal of a system, ideological system you're proposing, okay? Not overhauling things and reforming things. If that's the case, that's how the others came into power.
If I may, I don't know whether I am audible.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate that question highly. I know how important it is to you, and this is a question that I have taken time to really think about after every conversation that we have, that, and not is why I spoke about the twin question that we have to deal with for the case of Uganda post January 15th, that what happens. And I did speak about two things. One is that we need to have a structure by those who come in that puts the brakes on the malfeasance that we have seen over the years in post-independence Uganda and by extension across Africa. But in terms of the specific question of how we envision a systemic change, a shift from what we have been given since the 1950s, which was left by the people that oppressed us. They came, they found us having our own systems, and they bastardized our systems. And I think we've talked about this. In terms of the ideological shift, what we must do, and this is what I honestly believe that we must do, it is said that unless a seed dies, it will not grow. There will be no germination. So there has to be a bold leadership that comes and says, we have to put a stop to the current system as we know it. What system? What? And I mean, we have to pause for a minute and ask ourselves, first of all, do we really understand? Do we have a common position about what we are talking of when we are saying the system? So we must begin to have a conversation between ourselves and ask ourselves, what is this thing that we call the system that we are always complaining about? That for me is a critical starting point. But so that I give a bit of clarity in terms of, and this is just my own thinking, in terms of what I think will undo these malaise that we have had to deal with and live with for ages, is number one, a system that begins with undoing the education, the books that we read, the history that we have been taught, what we have been told about who we are, what we have been told about our governance. Because governance and democracy, as we have been told about or pontificating about, existed with our forefathers. It was there. Our people had a system that had a way of dealing with conflict, that had a way of ensuring that there is equity, there is fairness, and everybody at the end of the day had what they deserved and what was good for them. So that is where we need to take ourselves to. We need to reset ourselves in terms of what the late Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o was saying, decolonizing the mind. We must be able to begin from there. And once we do that, I do believe highly, and everybody that's listening to me at this point in time, that the system, the knowledge, the value system, what we believe in, what we know about who we are, is going to be the critical starting point for us to reset everything. Once we reset what we feed our minds, then it becomes easy for everything else to flow. And it is a whole discussion that we can have about what that entails. But in summary, that is how I see it. Decolonizing our mind, changing what we know about who we are, and accepting that we are something valuable, so that we begin to be boastful. We stop doubting ourselves. We stop accepting the bastardization of who we are, and I would give many examples, but I want to leave it at that because, I mean, it will open a whole new discussion, and I think this is something Val and the team at Sankofa we need to do more often. We need to get into the depth of, for us to be able to then answer that question, because that is a pertinent, and I would say, like my biology teacher used to say, it is a very pregnant point that needs to be delivered. Of the contents that lie in, because they are heavy, they are weighty, and they are, I dare say, revolutionary stuff that is in that question.
Can I chime in? We are the heirs of the world's revolution. Those were words that Thomas Sankara mentioned, uttered. Julius Nyerere was very big on Ujamaa. And until Africa, and especially East Africa, changes the way we do our politics, right? Like I was asking, in Kenya, we don't have any ideology-based politics. You ask the Kenyan, what is capitalism? What is socialism? What is communism? You know, what are all these things? They have no idea. And that's why my biggest fear, like I added before, is removing Ruto as president to just put in another Ruto. What difference does it make? When I look at all the Kenyan politicians who are running, to me they are all Rutos. There is no Kenyan politician saying, this is how we're going to make Kenya different in terms of ideology. And it starts with the little things. I was watching a video, and there is a waterfall in Kenya called the Thompson Falls in Nyahururu. That waterfall has been there for how many years? Existed for hundreds and hundreds of centuries. And then our Mzungu came in and said, I have discovered this. It's Thompson Falls, you know? And that to me really agitates me. But Kenyans are comfortable with it. They don't understand why is it not called the Nyahururu Falls. There is no one who has spoken out to say, we need to change the name of these falls. No politician, from local all the way to the president, because they are still asleep, right? When we look at the system of governance, we like to copy. We copy this, copy that, copy this, pretty much everything. When you ask why things are being copied, we don't understand why. I'll give you an example. In Kenya, we celebrate Halloween. Nobody knows why, but we are celebrating it. Now Kenyans have started celebrating Thanksgiving holiday. Okay, you ask why, they don't understand, right? So until, and I agree with Dr. Milton, and this should go all the way to Uganda. Like, if I was in Kenya, I don't know, president, I don't know, I would change the whole history. I would eradicate it and have it written afresh. Teach us who Dedan Kimathi really was. Stop glorifying Jomo Kenyatta, who was a leader of tribalism, you know. Teach us who Patrice Lumumba was, who Thomas Sankara was, who Kwame Nkrumah was, right? I know even when it comes to Idi Amin, we talk about how awful he was. That's what they teach us, right? How he used to eat people and all these things. But, okay, in my experience, that's what I was taught, right? But nobody really talks about the time he was like standing up for the Ugandans and what Uganda needs to be, right? And everyone just sees he was pushing out everybody, but nobody quite understood why he was doing that, right? Mugabe, right? I know in the end he kind of messed up, but in the beginning he wanted what was rightfully for the Zimbabweans to go back to them, right? And he was met with a lot of sanctions which crippled that. So until we change our mindset, and this is not an easy thing, changing mindsets, you know. You've been taught Ludwig Kraft discovered Mount Kenya. That is in your books. In the exams, that's who discovered Mount Kenya? Ludwig Kraft, Dedan Kimathi. But you have to pick Ludwig Kraft so that you can get the A, right? Because the system that we've been having in school is a system to make us what the bourgeoisie invented, to make people follow us rather than critical thinking. So I think that should be the first, in my opinion, the first step, and this should spread to Uganda, where I don't know the history they teach there in your books, But if it's the same thing as Kenya, I think that should be step one. And this is not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And this is where the diaspora really needs to come in handy. Like when I speak to my grandfather or my aunties, I always try to educate them on that. When they tell me, let's vote for Matiang'i, I'm like, you know, this guy worked for the World Bank and the IMF. You realize to work at the Central Bank of Kenya, you have to work for the IMF and the World Bank. Why? Because you need to put the needs of the IMF and the World Bank first, not the needs of Kenya. But they don't see that when it comes to electing our leaders.
I think to add on it, I think one of the challenges we face as Africans is that we got these systems grandfathered into our politics. But the most pro-Pan-African political ideology was supposed to be Ubuntu and Ujama. Those two things encompass everything that we aspire for. Because where there is Ubuntu and Ujama, you're going to see that you're my sisters, you're my brother's keepers. You're going to make sure if I'm not okay, you won't be okay. That's the same thing I was talking about earlier, that there is need for us to make sure that what happens in Kenya, I feel it as a person who lives in Uganda. And how can we do that? It's only if we go back to the tenets of Pan-Africanism, of Ubuntu, and of Ujama. The challenge that we do is marrying into the imperial political ideologies of capitalism, of Marxist. Those things, we don't identify with them. There is something that can echo in Africa that can give us a starting point, that can give us a sense of belonging, and can give us self-determination, and that would be Ubuntu, Ujama as a political ideology. Thank you.
I just want to say a few things. Sorry. There's a book out on Uganda that I think everybody should start reading. But to say, you know, on Uganda, yeah, that book, oh my sister, you got it already. It's a book I ordered quickly. We're going to have the writer here to come. But the thing is, you got to know, you know, for me, this is a very important book on really from Abote to Idi Amin back to Tanzania, back to Abote coming back, and then Museveni. You know, there's amazing history there that I feel ideology, the fact that we don't propose with audacity a system of living, incorporating traditional and modern ideas, but they not mimicking this Western style of false democracy. We know even they do not practice it, but we are always, whether we take religion or or ideology, we become more religious than them. You know, because now Christianity's officers, the most important critical proselytizers for Christianity come out of Africa. And for the idea of this false undefined democracy, Africans are in the forefront talking about democracy there, etc. We saw just the other day, even now in the United States, whatever happened in Venezuela, they call it capture of so-and-so. The fact that they abducted a person, the news itself is corrupt, because this is how they sell democracy, the word on us. They mean it not what we think they mean it, but we religiously become the soldiers of that. I've seen it in Zimbabwe, Nigeria, South Africa. We become like the proselytizers of European, the very European demented idea of civilization that they brought to, wipe us into poverty, disease, and war, which are the three industries we should be proud of in Africa: disease, war, and allowing and helping us exploit us. Because you cannot give me one military organization in Congo that's fighting for Congolese people, All of them have a white benefactor who is waiting for the diamond, waiting for the gold. Well, we kill our people to enrich a different master, either the Dutch, the British, or the Israeli, owner of our mineral power. So I'm saying I think these are critical commentary on us that should make us look for a very guaranteeing, imperfect. Now it's not going to be perfect, but a very imperfect idea to be born out of capacity, as the brother said, our own capacity, our capacity to imagine the kind of world we know our people want. Peace, food, shelter, medicine, guaranteed things. These are like, to me, what we failed to bring about, but we argue on a system we didn't invent, as if we invented it. It's amazing how we can be so religious about it. Sorry, I took too much time. Who wants the mic next? Here, my brother. One is open.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Karim, my brother, and for this presentation and opportunity. My name is Daniel Kauma. I'm the NUP Diaspora Team Leader. And I want to take this opportunity to just make a short comment, because whenever we come to such events, people ask, how can we help? And I think that's the question I wanted to pose to Mr. Karim, because we have our brothers and sisters here who might want to support what's happening in Uganda. We have Bobi Wine, who has inspired many young people, not just in Uganda, but across Africa and even the world. Because right now, Uganda is one of the youngest populations worldwide, and we're seeing it across many African countries. You have young people who are being led by leaders who are 80, 90 years and have been ruling for over 40 years in power. So Bobi Wine is leading this movement of young people who want change, who want a different direction for their country. What I appeal to all of you is, if you want to help support that cause, reach out to me. You can go to our website. We have an organization here called National Unity Platform Diaspora. You can reach out to us. We support victims of torture, human rights violations. Right now we have over 400 of our colleagues that were arrested since the election started in Uganda, since the campaign started, who are in jail. So we do support their legal fees. We do support their welfare of their families and loved ones, as well as the political prisoners we have, such as Dr. Kizza Besigye, Sarah Bireti, and others who are in jail. So if you want to contribute towards that cause, please reach out to us or Mr. Karim. diasporanup.org is the website. diasporanup.org. That's where we do it reflects some of the work we do. And if you want to contribute, reach out to me or Mr. Karim before this session is over. But the question I want to pose before I leave is that we are seeing the emergence of military coups in particularly West Africa, where people are getting frustrated with the systems we have in place, where you have leaders who rig elections. We have this so-called democracy, but they run the electoral commissions, they're able to manipulate results. And what's your opinion on the issue? Because it's very contentious, because obviously we want democracy, we don't want militaries taking over across Africa, because we end up seeing the same stories repeating over and over again. They come and promise great things, and then you end up in the same place. But do you think that's any different? We're seeing that trend in West Africa right now. You see coup after coup, taking out these leaders who have been in power for over 40 years plus. Of course, people get excited because they want change. They can no longer believe in elections because they get rigged. So is that a new trend Africans should embrace? Is that a bad thing? Or what other options could people have who are desperate for power change? Thank you so much.
Did you want to answer the question, Milton?
Thank you, Val, for your question. I think that is a pertinent question, and it's timely. For the reason that what actually constitutes, what is a coup d'etat, as it has been told to us, and what has been the basis of having this coup d'etat, as you would call it. I want to respond by saying this. I was just making reference, and I know I have spoken about this in the past, because I think it is one of my favorite reads when it comes to what was produced in independent Kenya in the early years. And that is sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which spoke about African socialism and its application to planning. And in that document, there were very thought-provoking concepts or statements, if you like, that were quite widely spoken about. That at the time, and I'm going to try and make reference at some stage, that at the time the Africans were trying to run away from Western capitalism and the communism from the East, and say we are going to adopt a non-alignment approach in terms of how we do our things, and the African socialism concept was developed. Pan-Africanism as a concept of making sure that we go back to pre-1895 era, and stuff like that. And what comes to mind is that the concept of the coups, as we have come to know them, is that we had a leadership that was weak, that was so fearful of the power of the people, that they came up with this idea of using the military and the system of state that was inherited from the colonialists to then galvanize power and continue with the abuse of that power that was delegated to them. They become beneficiaries of watered down trust of the people, and therefore they wanted to protect themselves. So they militarized, the concept of defense for the people, against the people. So that is where I see this coming from. So the effect of that is that essentially the people were left helpless, that they were boxed between being obedient and patriotic citizens in the strict sense of what was given to them as the rule of law, which was meant to self-preserve those who abused the power, and being told that you cannot fight the system. You cannot fight, and then the military was being unleashed against the people. So when you have the converse of that, where you have people centered military regimes who then come and say, no, this is not what the military is supposed to do, this is not what governance is about, then it was coined up as coup d'etat. But I mean, honestly speaking, based on what we have seen and what we continue to see, would you rather the people are helpless and they continue to be oppressed under a regime in quote-unquote civilian leadership, and it continues to steal from the people, impoverish the people, oppress the people? Or would you rather an uprising of patriotic citizens serving in the military who come in and say we are going to rescue our people? The question we must ask is that what is the end result? And I'm not saying the end justifies the means, but I'm just saying, how does then once power that has been taken from the abusers, how is it returned to the people in a meaningful way, number one. Number two, in a way that is peaceful and ensures there is no bloodshed, but more importantly, ensures that the citizens actually have access to services and quality of life that they deserve as a consequence or as a natural outcome of the taxes that they pay to the government. Because government is about the people, for the people. You do not exercise any power, whether judicial, whether political, whatever it is, administrative or even military. It is on behalf of the people. You exercise military power to defend and protect the borders of the people against aggressors. So, to the extent that it has been made so bad that when the patriots within the ranks of the military rise and say, enough of this oppression against our people, we are putting an end to it, it shouldn't be bastardized. I honestly believe that the people have the right to determine how they want to move on once a situation like that arises. And I say so very cognizant as a scholar, as somebody who understands what governance is and what the principle of separation of powers and the concept of everybody has a role to play. But I say the people cannot be helpless. What we are looking at is that in Africa, with the continent having the youngest population in the world, the most energetic, yet the most useless because they are not given an opportunity, because they are jobless, because their quality of life is poor and they have nothing to lose other than their miserable lives. What we are sitting on is a time bomb, a ticking time bomb, and we must be able to come out and say, who is going to rescue our people from this oppression? Because when it happens, when the people finally decide to go after these dictators, then not even the military will stop it, because I believe that within the military ranks we have patriotic citizens who want to see an end to this, including Moses Muhoozi's military, because among those people are citizens. Like I said, first of all, you're a citizen before you become a soldier. And you will be a citizen after you are a soldier. And even as a soldier, you're still a citizen. That is what we need to strike a balance and galvanize our people and galvanize the different stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I'm using that word loosely, to mean the different classifications of citizens, so that we have a homogeneous society that is working for the benefit of the people. I am against, as I conclude, I am against this self-preservation statements that come from Addis and Nairobi, for the case of the EAC and everywhere, that say that you can only take power through democratic means. Yet that democratic means they're talking about is muzzled. The electoral commissions and bodies that run those elections are being controlled by a few individuals, and therefore we are being told, like was the case in Tanzania, that you talk about a president who was elected by 98% of the people, yet the inauguration or swearing in cannot happen in the presence of the 98% that voted for that people. That kind of abuse, that kind of insult is one that must be called out and must be stopped by all means necessary in the best interest of the people.
My brother, you want to say something first?
No, he has something.
Okay.
No, I have something to say.
No, let me ask it, because it's about the coup thing. To me, coup d'etat is not a preference, but it's an explosion out of something that is pressurized. As my brother said, it's a pressurized response. But coup is not something that we should look for, in my view. But the other coin of the other part of the coin is civilians have been making coup in Africa for a while. I mean, concurrent to military coup in Nigeria, Ghana, etc. The military also, the civilian election itself is a form of a coup, because it's a coup against the interest of the people, even when they buy the public to vote for them with money. When you go around giving money, that's a coup d'etat with finance, with capacity of economic capacity coup, I would call it for a second. So for me, coup will always happen in Africa, one way or another. But I think when we talk about something, we vision. What do we have? What's alternative vision? I can't stop a coup, nor would I say don't make a coup. Especially like in Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara came with a coup, but the people took him out of prison and made him a leader. So for me, I was not comfortable. I was very close to Burkina Faso. I went all the time there. I had sessions with my brother, but I don't like military power in Africa. I do not go near them when I'm invited, even as a professional. I stay away. I don't eat with them because I just feel any minute they could, like the Ethiopian guy, any minute they could just destroy so many people because they have the guns, etc. So, but to me, it's not what I wish or don't wish, because the historical process is what Africa is responding. These schools are response to the reality of Africa. That's how I take them. They're not my choice, they're not my preference. They make a big deal now in the Sahel region, etc., but I'm not in it. Intellectually, I don't want to spend my time to go for or against military coup. But I think now I want to ask my brother here one question, and that is because Mr. Wine, from my travel from South Africa to West Africa, when I asked them, what is Mr. Wine proposing, prescription, they would tell me that he used to be a singer or something like that. So I want to ask my brother, what is it Mr. Wine in Uganda now proposing? What is his prescription? This is to you, my brother, because I want to be enlightened, because all I know is the young people who told me, that, you want the mic?
No.
No, that's okay. The young people told me he's a singer, because I know Jay-Z could run up tomorrow too, but the guy in the White House is also an entertainer. So what is there more to Mr. Wine? Can you tell me more?
Yes.
Thank you for that question. So Bobby Wine started what we call the People Power Movement because of some of the issues that Mr. Karim has touched on. The politicians we have had in power have done a very effective job of dividing us based on tribe, based on religion. Even the political parties which they introduced, they have used those to split our country apart. So what initiated the movement was the People Power Movement, which is going to bring together people who are patriotic about the country, who want change, who want better countries, not just in Uganda, but across Africa, where I talked about the young people who want real change in their country. So we do have an agenda. We do have a political manifesto. If you want to go to a National Unity platform, that's online. There's a clear manifesto. There are clear economic policies. There are clear healthcare policies that you want to. There are policies how to address the issue of the national debt, where we are borrowing endlessly from the World Bank, IMF, and other organizations around the world, including China. So there are clear policies that he wants to implement in Uganda to bring about that much needed change.
Do you mind if we have a panel discussion on the platform document? We can Google it with Jordan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's.
Can you prepare a panel discussion?
Yes.
On the proposition.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and that's why it's very crucial, because that's the characterization which is often used against Bobby Wine, that he's an artist. I think being an artist doesn't mean you cannot lead. The same way we had Ronald Reagan, who was a movie star. The same way the United States has Donald Trump, whatever he's doing in this country. So it doesn't, like, people come,
Really bad example.
exactly, people come from different backgrounds. That's the point I wanted to make. That all leaders don't have to go to, to go through a certain university and so forth. It's usually, for me, I believe, it's one's passion and love for their country and for their people and what they stand for.
No, most artists don't want power. They don't like power. Power,
Right.
like in Ngugi, will never be the prime minister of Kenya. Will never.
Right.
A good artist stays out giving us mirror. Once they run, once they become the actors in politics,
Right.
look at the White House.
Yeah, but basically the situation in Uganda is, I think it's the same struggle that many other African countries have had since independence, that we had this political class which came, and instead of bringing the true change that people fought for to get independence in most of their countries, they really prioritized enriching themselves, and they divided us in different groups using some of the structures that we talked about, religion, tribalism, and so forth. So they really lost the true value of what independence in Africa was. And I think that's the challenge which most of our countries in Africa are suffering from, that we really lost the Ubuntu that Mr. Karim was talking about. And we started prioritizing how do we get rich, how do we game the system to determine that way, rather than the true values of fighting for even the poor people that we have in our rural areas. So if you look at the true agenda, if you look at the spirit of an ideology of Bobi Wine, he's really fighting for the little man, the people who are hopeless, the people who are poor in our countries, and figure out how do we use our resources in Uganda to benefit even those who are not benefiting from them. And of course, Mr. Karim talked about the challenges that we have, that we are already in the web of a global system, a global economy, that we have to deal with that reality. The issue that how do we stand together as Africans to fight back? Because when you talk about the IMF, when you talk about the World Bank, they have already had such a heavy imprint, and right now even China, that the footprint is so big that right now when you look at Uganda, almost 40% of our budget is used to pay just interest on debt. So how do you dig yourself out of that debt to invest in programs that are going to benefit the people? Those are some of the things that Bobi Wine talks about in our manifesto, that how do we roll back some of the structures we have that have resulted to our dependence on the West, where we can no longer, we are a wealthy nation, but we are so dependent on West for aid. Right now, the United States just signed deals with Kenya, with Uganda, saying they're going to come and help us treat malaria. You can imagine. HIV, that Donald Trump is the one who's going to sign our checks. Yet go to Congo, there's plenty of minerals. Go to Uganda, there's gold, there's oil. Why does the United States have to come to our countries to finance our health care when we have all this wealth? So that's really the challenge that we have to deal with, and those are some of the issues that Bobi Wine tries to address, that how do we disengage ourselves from the dependence we have from the Western countries. I don't want to go on and on, but maybe we can have another conversation on some of the ideas that I believe can help us disentangle from the West.
We have passed the time, but I want the assistant to close it. But I'm going to, I promise you, we're going to organize on this platform, in my view, because you can help us to this one. Yeah, we will organize a discussion, because I think it's all it's going to benefit everybody. I've never seen the document you talk about, but we're going to download, bring it, study. We'll have more young people come from Howard to discuss it, etc. You want to, because my brother might want to do concluding, and you do concluding, and him concluding before, because we're past time.
Uncle, so can go ahead.
Oh, first of all, I want to thank our friends here at Fonka for giving us the opportunity and the space to engage. We're really, really grateful, and I want to thank the audience for supporting our cause, for having the spirit of East Africa and turning up. and I pray that the next time we meet here, it will be a better space for Uganda. We have just a few days before the elections. I encourage each one of you to keep your eyes on Uganda, share the messages about what's going on in Uganda, so that at least, you know, the issue of Ugandan liberation is not hidden just in Uganda, but it's spoken about all over the world. Thank you so much.
Milton, did you want to give a brief conclusion? Brief.
I want to say this. I think I want to appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here tonight and share my thoughts with you and the great audience that we have, and Karim over there. I think the conversation continues. Africa should be our business, and Uganda, we wish that every citizen will have the opportunity to peacefully come out and exercise their right to vote, and we hope that that vote will count for something. But I think more importantly is that post January 15th, we need to ask ourselves what that would look like immediately after the the ballots are cast and the counting is done. What happens, whether, you know, NUP comes into power and Museveni is no more, or what happens. I think whichever way, whichever the outcome, we need to be prepared for that, and we must be able to offer solutions. Lastly, I want to say this. I refuse to accept that the people are that helpless, that the dictators in Africa will deploy every line in the script of the unjustifying the means. They want to steal elections and get sworn in the middle of the night and hope that the people would then have to struggle to remove them. I think that people cannot be that helpless. We must be able to help our people and engage from the civic space that we belong to ensure that each one of us is teaching everyone, so that at the end of the day, a citizenry that is woke, a citizenry that is aware, that is able to connect their problems to the bad governance personified by the bad politicians and the evil political players, is what is going to ultimately change the trajectory of development and progress for our people. It may not happen in our lifetime, not even in the lifetime of our children, but we must be able to be there to stand up and say that at least we started for something. Let historians, when they write it, the history, be able to say that we did our part and handed over to those that came after us. Thank you very much. Once again, a happy new year, and may Africa's liberation and renaissance be a dream that will all be realized in our lifetime, and if not, let's play our part. Thank you very much.
Let me say something, so we can just flip it upside down. I'm from Ethiopia, but this is not a happy new year for us. We have our own calendar. So my brother, I appreciate you, but I want to also jolt you with Africa's reality. Somewhere we celebrate. You were talking earlier, I think my sister here, in Ethiopia, they're celebrating now Christmas, dressed like the guy Santas or Santo. And they would go around and it's under the equator, sweating to death, wearing that clothes. And that's Africa's irony. So I just want to say
Yeah.
Thank you,
When we lose our fear, they lose their power.
They lose their powers.
When we embrace Ubuntu, we move forward together and even quicker. The book that all of us, like Haile mentioned, should read is known as Slow Poison: Idi Amin, Yoweri Museveni, and the Making of the Ugandan State by Mahmoud Mamdani. That is the book. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much to Haile Abel for giving us this platform. Thank you so much, Karim, for coming. Milton, I know you said that you